Hello, and welcome to the No Wrong Notes podcast, a show hosted by me, Veronica Kokos, holistic voice teacher and singer just like you. Grab a cup of tea, relax, and sit back as we discuss all things singing technique, mindset tips, and more so you can show up as the most confident and creative singer you can be. Hi y'all, and welcome to another Q&A episode of the No Wrong Notes podcast. In this episode, I'll be answering your questions ranging from voice types and whether they matter to managing stress as a singer. I do these episodes fairly regularly, so if you've got a singing question or you want to ask me anything, and like I said, ask me anything. I've had questions asking about marketing before, marketing yourself as a singer. So I am really open to the full gamut. I love talking about these different topics. So if you've got a question, shoot it over to me on Instagram for next time. So we're going to jump right into things today. The first question asks, does my voice type matter? This person says that they were a soprano in choir back in high school, but my current voice teacher won't really talk to me about what my voice type is when I ask. So, voice typing. Ooh, boy, I feel like this is such a hot topic, and I can definitely understand why, because on one hand, knowing your voice type is helpful in contexts like choir, knowing what part you're supposed to sing, obviously that's important. But on the other hand, I think that we can get really hung up on labels. We can get really attached to the idea of, I'm a soprano or I'm an alto. Actually, there was a singer that I went to school with in undergrad who he was singing a lot of baritone repertoire when I was going to school with him. And we all knew him as this baritone. And then he went to get his master's, I believe, or maybe his doctorate at another school. And when I met with him next, he told me he was a tenor and that he had some hangups around it. So that's just an example of how we can get really attached to these labels, and then we can maybe have an identity crisis when that label changes. And so having these labels can be useful in that it's a form of organization. However, the voice is always changing throughout our lives, though it doesn't fully mature until around age 30. So if you're a younger person listening to this, do not get hung up on your voice type. And regarding your voice teacher that doesn't really want to talk about your voice type, obviously I've just laid out reasons why voice typing can maybe not be useful. But if it's important to you, let them know that it's important and see how receptive they are to a conversation. I mean, I'll have students ask me sometimes hey, I know how you feel about voice types, but can you maybe give me an idea of where my voice is headed, where my voice is currently at? Just having a conversation about your voice and having this open dialogue is really helpful and useful. All right, moving on to our second question. This person says, my stress and anxiety affect my voice to the point where it makes it hard to sing. Everything just feels so tense and I get in my head about it, so I give up. Any tips? So this is a really difficult question to answer since this sounds like an issue that would be served well from meeting with a mental health professional. If there's an underlying issue when it comes to your stress and anxiety, that tension is only going to come back again and again until the roots of that stress and anxiety are dealt with. Like I said, meeting and talking to a mental health professional is probably your best course of action when it comes to those things. Of course, I understand that not all have access to affordable mental health resources. So it can also be useful to get to the bottom of your stress through a journaling or self-reflection practice. While all of our anxieties are different, some things that I do to work through mine are breath work. There's this YouTube channel that I really, really like called Breathe with Sandy. And he has so many breathing exercises that, have helped my anxiety so much. I love doing them. It's a really physical practice, which I love. I've also shared before that I journal. So I do a lot of self-reflection and diving into the roots of my issues through journaling. I also meditate. I also work out, walking, running, yoga, Pilates, weight training. Moving my body is so helpful when it comes to managing my mental health. And being in nature, being outside also really helps me. Of course, like I said, all of our anxieties are different. What helps me may not help you. These are just some ideas, some places to start when it comes to thinking about how to manage your anxiety and your stress. And when it comes to your singing, it's also worth incorporating into your warm-ups some neck and jaw exercises. I mean, you can also find them online, on YouTube, on social media. You can also massage around the muscles that are tensing up for you, like around the jaw, the muscles in the neck. Of course, like I said, we are all different, and it's worth diving into the deeper rooted issues surrounding the anxiety and stress to release what might be manifesting physically in your singing with a mental health professional or through a journaling practice. So that's kind of all I'll share on that question. Third question. Can you ever change the tone of your voice? I don't like the way my voice sounds, and I'm wondering if changing your voice's tone is possible. This is an excellent question, and the way that I'll frame my answer is that there are two ways to think about this: the things that we can control versus the things that we can't when it comes to our voice's tone. When it comes to the things that we can control, we can alter the sound of our voice through our technique, the quality of phonation when we sing, which means whether our voice sounds naturally breathy or not, and altering our resonance, how we use our tongue, the soft palate, the lips to influence the way our voice sounds. Those are the things we can control. I will also add that your vocal health also has an impact on the sound of your voice. So taking care of your voice, doing your warm-ups, doing your SOVT exercises, maybe avoiding smoking as well. I mean, there's no judgment here to people that do smoke. I know singers that do smoke. But taking care of the voice also can influence the sound of your tone and the quality of your tone. So, like I said, these are all the things that we can control. Our technique and our vocal health. Moving on to the things that we cannot control when it comes to our voice. Allergies. You know, our voice responds to things in our environment, like allergies, like illness. We also cannot control the way our larynx is built, how thick or big our vocal folds are, and the shape of our body, specifically our skull and the muscles above the shoulders. All of these things, like allergies, illness, the structure of our larynx, our vocal folds, the shape of our bodies, all of these things influence the natural timbre and tone quality of your voice. And we cannot change these things, okay? They just are. Now, surgery within the larynx or to your resonators, like getting vocal fold surgery or a nose job, for example, can change the natural sound of your voice. Of course, those are kind of extreme circumstances. But aside from that, these are all the things we cannot control. And as I just shared with you, this is a pretty big list of things we cannot control. And I think when we consider the things we can control versus what we cannot control, that helps us take our power back. Now, if you don't like the sound of your natural timbre or tone, it's hard, but working towards acceptance or even feeling neutral towards your voice is the work. I'll use myself as an example. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I have a pretty high, in my opinion, I have a pretty high speaking voice. You know, I've heard recordings of myself speak, obviously on this podcast, and I'm like, wow, my voice is, to me, it sounds very high and very bright. And my voice has sounded like this for such a long time. And growing up, I really didn't like how high and bright my voice was. When I was singing, I wanted to sound like an alto. My first voice teacher was actually a contralto, and I just loved the sound of her voice. And I was like, man, I wish I could sound more like that. And I always just felt a lot of kind of not dislike towards my voice, but definitely struggling with accepting it. And it wasn't until I realized all of the things that my voice could do, like sing really high notes as a coloratura soprano, like singing runs really well. That's something that my voice also does well. It wasn't until I was considering these things and I was like, you know what? My voice does have something to offer that I started to move towards accepting my voice a lot more. There are days where I really am frustrated with my voice. It's not like I've gotten to this point and I'm like, yeah, I accept my voice all the time, 24/7. My voice has its good and bad days, and my relationship to my voice changes depending on the day. But for the most part, I do appreciate what my voice can do and the way that my voice sounds. But it's a journey. It is a journey, and it's a hard journey. What I would do is consider what your voice does well. Like not even considering the tone of your voice, but just like, what does my voice do well? Do you sing high notes really well? Are your low notes really strong? Are you able to use a lot of power when you sing? I know that these maybe aren't related directly to the tone of your voice, but I think that focusing on the things that we do well and that we do like about our voice can help us better accept the voice as it is, and maybe even moving towards accepting the tone of our voice. Ultimately, we're all on our own journey. So like I said, focus on the things that you can control versus what you can't, and maybe even moving towards acceptance. Let's go to the last question. Does exercise help with singing? This is a hard question to answer, since while I've experienced positive changes in my singing from working out, I'm also not the most qualified person to talk on this topic. But according to an article from St. Olaf College, physical activity can support effective management of the vocal breath by developing a balance of flexibility and power in the ribcage, waist, and abdomen. I personally notice this in my own singing. I regularly walk, run, do Pilates, weightlifting, and yoga, and I feel like in all of these activities, I'm constantly aware of my breath. I also find that running helps me experience a greater feeling of expansiveness in the ribcage, which I then take into my singing. But of course, this is all anecdotal, and like I said, I'm not the most qualified person to talk on this topic. Aside from the physical benefits, though, exercise can aid with mental health. Getting those endorphins going, y'all. And if you can, obviously I emphasize the can part of things because disability is real and not all bodies are created the same. However, if you can and are capable of movement, moving your body in some way can be really helpful for all of these physical and mental benefits. And adding movement to your practice routine or even just your daily routine certainly cannot hurt your singing. So that's kind of my response to that. All right, y'all, that's all I've got today. My teaching schedule over the next couple weeks is pretty crazy going into June. However, if you want to work with me, you can work with me through my Curious Singer membership. That is linked in the show description. If you liked this episode, please leave a 5-star rating and review. I would absolutely love that. You can follow me on social media for more singing tips. Those are both linked in the show description. And in the meantime, happy singing, y'all.